Welcome to FearBound Stories. Please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now let's begin. New York City, the city that never sleeps. That's what everyone says, but those who've lived here long enough know that's not true. There are hours in the deep folds of the night when even the subways hold their breath, when the wind goes silent between the buildings and the city feels like it's listening. It's during those hours that strange things happen. Things that no one ever talks about. Essex Towers didn't stand out among the hundreds of aging apartment buildings scattered across Manhattan's Upper East Side. Built in the 1920s, it had survived fires, floods, and renovations that never quite modernized it. The elevators still had those brass gates you had to slide by hand, and the marble lobby floors were cracked in places from years of footsteps. It was the kind of place where the air smelled faintly of history and bleach. When Rebecca Hall moved into apartment 12B, she didn't care that the building was old. She'd just landed her dream job at a Manhattan architecture firm, and Essex Towers was the only affordable place within walking distance of the office. She figured she'd stay 6 months, maybe a year. She didn't plan on staying any longer. The building manager, a quiet man named Mr. Lasker, had shown her the unit himself. "Rent's low because of the elevator," he'd said almost apologetically. Rebecca had laughed. "What's wrong with the elevator?" He paused for a moment, eyes flicking toward the ceiling before replying, "It's old. That's all." But the way he said it, it wasn't about age. It sounded like a warning. Her first week there was uneventful. The building was quiet, mostly retirees and widows who kept to themselves. The only sound at night was the distant hum of traffic and the occasional clang of the pipes. On the 7th night, Rebecca stayed late at work, the kind of endless New York shift that bleeds past midnight. When she finally got back to Essex Towers, the doorman was gone, though the desk lamp was still on. The elevator stood open waiting. She hesitated for a second. Something about its emptiness felt strange, too still, too expectant. But exhaustion won out. She stepped inside, pulled the brass gate closed, and pressed the button for 12. The elevator groaned, then began its slow ascent. At the 5th floor, the light flickered. At the 9th, it dimmed completely, plunging her into shadow for a heartbeat before sputtering back to life. Then it stopped. Between the 10th and 11th floors, Rebecca sighed, tapping the panel. "Oh, come on." She pressed the emergency button. Nothing. She tried her phone. No signal. That's when the air changed. The warm, stale air of the elevator turned cold. Not like a draft, but like the heat had been sucked out of the room entirely. Her breath came out visible. And then she heard it. A faint, rhythmic tapping coming from behind the mirrored panel on the back wall. Tap, 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 like fingernails on metal. She stared at the reflection, her heart hammering. The brass panel had dulled with age, but she could still see herself, pale, tired, holding her phone up like a shield. Then something else moved in the reflection. At first she thought it was just her hair, but the shadow behind her shifted independently, standing taller, closer, until it looked like another person. A woman. Long hair, bare feet, face obscured. Rebecca turned sharply. No one there. When she turned back, the figure was gone. She exhaled shakily and muttered, "I need sleep." She pressed the buttons again, 11, 12, lobby, but none of them lit up. Then the display flickered once, twice, and a number appeared she'd never seen before. The elevator jerked violently and began to move upward. Rebecca stumbled, grabbing the rail. "No, no, no, stop!" she shouted, hammering the buttons. But the car didn't stop until it reached the top. With a screech, it halted and the doors slowly opened. Darkness beyond, the smell of mold and damp plaster. Rebecca hesitated. then leaned out, shining her phone light. The hallway stretched endlessly, lined with doors. Each door was slightly ajar, and on every one of them, the numbers were backwards, mirrored. She stepped out, calling softly, "Hello?" Her voice echoed strangely, bouncing back in a delayed whisper, as if the building itself was mimicking her. The carpet beneath her feet was soggy. The walls were water-stained, old paint curling like dried skin. At the far end of the hallway, a faint light flickered under one door, the only one that wasn't open. Drawn by a mix of curiosity and fear, she moved toward it. As she did, she heard the faint sound of something dripping. The door's brass number read 13B, her apartment number, but one floor higher. She reached for the handle. It was cold, slick, like it had been touched by wet hands. She pushed the door open. Inside, she froze. It was her apartment. Same furniture, same lamp, same stack of unpacked boxes by the couch. But everything looked aged, faded, water-stained, and wrong. The photos on her wall were black and white, though she'd never owned any black and white photos. Her plants were shriveled, dry, and on the coffee table sat a single framed picture. It was her, standing in the apartment, only she looked older, her eyes sunken, mouth slightly open as if mid-scream. She dropped the photo, her pulse racing. Then she heard the sound again. Drip, drip, drip. From the kitchen. She moved toward it, each step heavier than the last. The air was thick, humid, like she'd stepped into a basement. The sink faucet was running, but the water wasn't clear. It was dark, streaked with rust. When she reached out to shut it off, she noticed her reflection in the window above the sink. Behind her stood the same pale woman from the elevator, this time closer. Her head bowed, her wet hair dripping steadily onto the floor. Rebecca turned slowly. The woman was right there, inches away. Her eyes were white and cloudy, her skin gray and swollen like she'd been underwater too long. Rebecca stumbled back, gasping, "Who are you?" The woman tilted her head. Then in a rasping whisper she said, "You live where I died." Rebecca bolted. She ran down the hallway barefoot, her breathing ragged. But the hall wasn't the same anymore. The wallpaper moved, pulsing, rippling like flesh. The lights flickered violently. Every door she passed began to rattle, as if someone inside was trying to get out. She reached the elevator and slammed the button. The doors opened instantly. She dove in and hit lobby. The car shook violently, lights flashing, gears screaming in protest. The numbers began descending, 13, 12, 11, then stopped. The light flickered again. The reflection in the brass panel now showed both of them, Rebecca trembling, and the woman standing behind her closer than before. The ghost's hand rested gently on her shoulder. Rebecca felt it, cold, clammy, real. Then the elevator plunged. It stopped suddenly at the lobby. The doors creaked open. The doorman was back at his desk, calmly flipping through a magazine. Rebecca stumbled out, soaked, trembling, unable to speak. He looked up at her, unbothered. "Miss, are you all right?" She stared at him, wide-eyed. Did the power go out? The elevator, it stopped on another floor." He frowned. "Another floor? Ma'am, this building only has 12. She turned toward the elevator. The doors were open again, perfectly still. Inside, gleaming in the light, was a single wet footprint, too small to be hers. Rebecca moved out the next day, but Essex Towers never lost its tenants. Every few years, someone new moves in. And sooner or later, someone rides that elevator late at night when the city goes quiet. Sometimes it stops between floors. Sometimes it doesn't move at all. And sometimes it takes you somewhere that isn't supposed to exist. No one knows who the woman is, but the oldest residents whisper that she was a maid, back when the building first opened. She died cleaning the elevator shaft, they say, crushed between floors when the cables failed, and ever since the elevator keeps her floor open for just a few minutes each night. The 13th floor, where she waits for company. Before we move on to the next story, give us your verdict on this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. The New York subway is a living thing. It breathes, it roars, it swallows people whole and spits them out again hours later. Every day, millions ride it without thinking, staring into their phones, earbuds in, faces blank. But there are those who say sometimes, the subway doesn't take you where you meant to go. Sometimes it takes you somewhere else. It happened to a man named Daniel Klein. Daniel was 32, an analyst for a finance firm in Midtown. He was the kind of man who measured his life in minutes. 7:15 train from Brooklyn, 8:05 coffee, 8:30 desk. He liked order. He liked knowing where he was going. On a rainy Thursday in February, he left his apartment late, just 5 minutes off schedule, and that's all it took for everything to unravel. He arrived at the Hoyt-Schermerhorn station just as the express train roared in. He slipped inside the last car as the doors closed behind him. The car was nearly empty, just a few tired commuters, a man reading a paper, a woman in scrubs, an old homeless man asleep near the door. Daniel sat, opened his phone, and barely noticed when the train skipped the next stop. At first, he thought it was an express reroute. Then he realized the lights outside the windows weren't changing. Tunnels rushed by endlessly, by no stations, no announcements. Just black walls streaked with flickering lights. After 10 minutes, the woman in scrubs frowned and stood. This isn't right. The man with the newspaper lowered it slowly. His eyes were wide. We've been in this tunnel too long, he murmured. Daniel checked his phone. No signal. He pressed his hand against the glass, trying to see anything beyond the motion blur, graffiti, lights, a sign. But it was just darkness, stretching forever. The train slowed, then stopped. No announcement, no conductor's voice, just the hum of electricity and the faint hiss of brakes. The fluorescent lights flickered, buzzing faintly, and then one by one, they went out. Someone whispered, "What's happening?" In the dark, Daniel's reflection glowed faintly in the window. He wasn't alone in it. Behind him, another shape appeared. A woman standing too close, her head tilted, eyes reflecting white like an animal's in headlights. He turned sharply, no one there. But the seat behind him was damp. After a minute, the lights came back on. The car was nearly empty now. The woman in scrubs, the man with the newspaper, gone. Only the homeless man remained, still slumped by the door. Daniel called out, "Hello? Did anyone get off?" His voice echoed down the car, thin and hollow. The train started moving again, slower now, with a low metallic groan. He looked out the window. The tunnel was different. The walls were wet, glistening as if breathing. There were faint handprints smeared across the glass on the other side. The next stop came into view, but it wasn't any station Daniel knew. The tiles were cracked, the signs unreadable, eaten away by rust. Every light buzzed and flickered, casting ghostly halos in the mist that hung near the tracks. The display above the door read only one word: "Return." The doors opened with a screech. Daniel hesitated. "Hello? Anyone here?" Silence. He stepped out. The air was damp and heavy, like standing inside a lung. The platform stretched endlessly in both directions, fading into darkness. As he walked, his footsteps echoed louder than they should have. Somewhere, water dripped steadily. He found a poster half ripped from the wall. The date printed at the bottom read, October 1987. He frowned. This has to be a prank. Then he saw the payphone. Old, rusted, but with the receiver swaying gently as though someone had just let go of it. He picked it up. Static hissed, then a faint voice. "You shouldn't have gotten off. Daniel froze. "Who is this?" No answer, only breathing. He dropped the phone and backed away, heart racing. The lights above him began to flicker violently. One by one they burst, raining glass shards that tinkled across the floor. And from down the platform, a train horn blared. He turned and saw headlights in the distance, a train approaching fast. He waved frantically. "Hey, stop!" The horn screamed louder, echoing through the tunnel. As it neared, Daniel realized the windows were dark. There was no one inside. And the faces pressed against the glass. They weren't moving. They looked like passengers, but pale, sunken, eyes black and hollow, mouths open in silent screams. The ghost train roared past, wind slamming into him, knocking him to the ground. When he looked up, the platform was empty again. Only the homeless man from before stood there now, watching him from the far end. Daniel shouted, "Hey, what is this place?" The man smiled faintly. "This is where they go." "Who?" "The ones who missed their stop." Daniel blinked. "What are you talking about?" The man tilted his head. "You think the city lets everyone come back?" Before Daniel could reply, the tunnel lights flickered again, and the man was gone. The ground beneath him vibrated. Another train was coming. Desperate, Daniel ran toward it as it slowed. He jumped inside just as the doors closed. It was empty again. The lights flickered, and he saw his reflection in the glass. Behind him, one by one, the missing passengers appeared. The woman in scrubs, the man with the newspaper, all staring blankly ahead. He turned slowly. The car was empty, but their reflections stayed. The lights went out. The next morning, the 7:15 train pulled into Hoyt-Schermerhorn on schedule. Commuters poured in and out just like any other day, except for one man, sitting perfectly still near the back of the last car, staring out the window with vacant eyes. When the conductor reached him at the end of the line, he was gone. Only his briefcase remained sitting neatly on the seat. Inside was his ID badge, his phone, and a folded subway map. The route circled in red ink led nowhere. Just a single word scrawled next to it in shaky handwriting. Return. To this day, some late-night subway riders claim they've seen him. A man in a dark suit sitting quietly near the back of the train, never moving. When the doors open, he's gone. And sometimes, if you're unlucky enough to ride the last train alone, the next stop might not be yours at all. Because under New York City, there are more lines than anyone knows. And not all of them lead back. Before we move on to the next story, give us your verdict on this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. New York apartments are strange things. They're stacked like cages, one on top of another, each with its own sounds, its own secrets, its own heartbeat. You learn to live with it. The footsteps above you, the pipes rattling in the walls, the constant hum of life just out of sight. But what happens when the apartment above you isn't supposed to exist? Sarah Donnelly moved into her new place on West 91st Street in early spring. It wasn't much, a one-bedroom walk-up in a pre-war building that smelled faintly of dust and old carpet. But for New York, it was perfect, affordable, quiet, and safe. At least that's what she thought. The landlord, an elderly man named Reuben, handed her the keys and said, "You'll be on the top floor, 5B. Just one neighbor below you, no one above." Sarah nodded, not thinking twice. But the first night she slept there, she heard footsteps from the ceiling. At first, she assumed it was the building settling, old wood, heating pipes, maybe pigeons on the roof. But these weren't random creaks. They were deliberate, measured, pacing, back and forth, exactly over her bed. She stared up at the ceiling for hours, wide-eyed, listening to the rhythm of someone walking above her when no one should be there. By morning, the noise stopped. She mentioned it casually to Reuben when paying her first rent check. He frowned. "Impossible, you're the top floor. There's nothing above 5B except the roof." Could there be access? A crawl space or storage area? He shook his head. No access. Roof sealed. Been that way for years. He smiled politely, but his eyes darted away. Old buildings make sounds. You'll get used to it. Sarah didn't argue, but that night when the footsteps returned, they sounded closer, heavier. At exactly 2:13 a.m., something fell. A loud thud directly above her ceiling, like a heavy object hitting the floor. Then silence. She waited, holding her breath, and then up a slow dragging sound. Something was being pulled across the floor above her, scraping wood inch by inch. She couldn't take it anymore. She climbed out of bed, grabbed her broom, and jabbed at the ceiling. "Hey! Quiet up there!" The sound stopped instantly. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then 3 slow knocks came back, right above her. The next morning, she went upstairs to check the roof access. The door at the top of the stairwell was locked with a thick chain and a "Keep Out" sign bolted across it. But the floor around it was covered in dust. And in the dust, footprints. Bare. Human. Fresh. They led to the edge of the stairwell wall and disappeared. That night, the noises grew louder. It wasn't just footsteps anymore, it was whispering. She couldn't make out words, just a faint rhythm that sounded almost like someone talking to themselves. Sometimes laughter, low and distant, but definitely human. At 3 a.m., the light in her living room flickered and went out. In the reflection of the darkened window, she saw movement on the ceiling. A faint bulge, as though something was pressing from the other side of the plaster. Then the ceiling cracked. Dust rained down. Sarah screamed, stumbling backward. When she looked up again, the ceiling was still. The next day, she went to the superintendent, a woman named Carla who lived on the first floor. "There's someone in the ceiling," Sarah said, her voice shaking. Carla sighed. "Honey, everyone hears things in this building. It's old." "No, I saw it move." Carla raised an eyebrow. "You mean the roof? That's solid concrete, nobody's up there. We sealed it after the accident." Sarah froze. "Accident?" Carla's face went pale. "Forget it, I shouldn't have said anything." That night, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about the word accident. At midnight, she climbed the stairs to the top again. The chain on the roof door was gone. The door itself hung slightly open, wind moaning through the gap. She hesitated, then pushed it wider. Beyond it wasn't the roof. It was a narrow corridor she'd never seen before, unlit, lined with peeling wallpaper and old mailboxes nailed to the walls. A faint dripping sound echoed from somewhere ahead. She stepped inside. The corridor led to a single apartment door. Faded brass numbers on it read 6B. But the building only had 5 floors. She touched the doorknob. It was cold, wet. From the other side came a faint scratching, like fingernails against wood. Then a woman's voice, barely audible. "Please, don't let him find me." Sarah froze. "Who are you?" Silence. She stepped back, heart racing, and the door creaked open on its own. Inside was darkness, the smell of mildew and something sweet, rot masked with perfume. She lifted her phone to use the flashlight. The beam cut through the dust and revealed the remains of an apartment frozen in time. Furniture draped in sheets, old wallpaper curling off the walls. But the walls were wrong. They pulsed faintly like breathing. In the center of the room sat an armchair facing away from her. Someone was sitting in it. "Hello," she whispered. The chair creaked slowly, turning toward her. It was empty. But something else sat in its place. A mass of black hair, soaked, tangled, spread out across the seat like seaweed. A low, wet sigh echoed through the room. The flashlight flickered. When it came back on, the doorway was gone. In its place stood a wall, uncracked and stained, sealing her inside. She spun around, panic rising. "Hello! Somebody help me!" The air grew thicker, colder. And then she heard it. Footsteps above her again. But this time she realized they weren't above. They were right behind her. The next morning, Ruben found her apartment door wide open. The lights were still on. The bed was unmade. Her phone sat on the counter, buzzing with missed calls. No sign of Sarah. When maintenance went to check the roof access, they found the chain back in place, padlocked, rusted, untouched. A month later, a new tenant moved into 5B. On her first night, she called the landlord. "Hey, sorry to bother you," she said nervously. "But who lives upstairs? They've been walking all night." Ruben froze. "There's no one above you," he said. She hesitated. "Then who's pacing?" He swallowed hard. "Don't hit the ceiling. Don't ever hit the ceiling. Locals say if you walk past that building late at night, you can still see a single light glowing faintly through the top window. A dim yellow glow that sways as if someone inside is still pacing. And if you move into an old New York apartment and hear footsteps from above, pray that there really is someone living there." Before we move on to the next story, give us your verdict on this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. There's something wrong with the New York subway after midnight. When the trains grow fewer, when even the rats get quiet, the tunnels feel like a living thing. Breathing, groaning, remembering. The regulars say the air tastes different down there at that hour. Cold, damp, metallic. Like breathing through a throat that isn't yours. And sometimes if you listen closely enough between stations, you can hear it. A voice whispering your name. That's when you know the whisperer has found you. It started with Elliot Price, a senior conductor with the MTA. Everyone liked him. Calm, punctual, a man who followed every rule. 15 years on the job, never a single complaint. Elliot didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in schedules, in tracks, in the hiss of air brakes and the click of switches, until the night he disappeared. That night in November, Elliot took the A train out of the yard at 12:37 a.m. A routine final run southbound. Rain poured outside, heavy and steady, the kind that makes the tunnels hum. Dispatch recorded his last call. "Train 2414 clear from Fulton proceeding south." And then silence. The train arrived at the next station 10 minutes late. Doors opening automatically, lights still on. But Elliot was gone. No struggle, no trace, no blood. Just his flashlight rolling slowly on the cabin floor. Its beam cutting across an empty seat. When detectives checked the surveillance footage, every camera between Fulton and High Street cut out for exactly 9 minutes. Power surge, the MTA said. Coincidence, the police said. But a passenger named Rachel Nguyen came forward with something else. She'd been the only rider in his car that night. She told investigators the train slowed suddenly between stations. Not braking, just dragging, as if something heavy clung to it. Then it stopped completely. The lights dimmed. No announcement, no conductor. She called out, "Hello, sir?" From somewhere up ahead, a whisper came back. Soft, calm, familiar. "Rachel." She froze. "How do you know my name?" she asked. No answer. Then the whisper again, this time directly behind her. She turned, nothing. Only her reflection in the dark window. And dozens of pale faces outside the glass pressed against it, their mouths moving soundlessly in the rhythm of the train. When the lights came back, they were gone. And so was Elliot. The MTA classified it as operator disappearance, presumed accident. But among night crews, the whispers started. Men swore their radios clicked on by themselves, voices whispering names that weren't in their logs. Some claimed to see old trains inside tunnels, unmarked cars with lights still burning, moving without power. At first, no one believed it, until Luis Cruz, a track inspector, decided to follow the sound. Luis was working maintenance just past Canal Street when he heard it, a faint hum like radio static threaded with whispers. He turned off his headset, still there. coming from a service tunnel marked "No Entry Sealed." The lock had been cut. He entered, flashlight trembling in his grip. The deeper he went, the colder it became. Water dripped from the ceiling, echoing like slow heartbeats. At the end of the tunnel, the light hit something impossible. A small, forgotten platform. Old benches, dust, a faded map from the 1950s. And in the center, a single subway car. It was rusted, silent, its doors half open, numbers barely visible on the side, 2414. "Impossible," Luis whispered. That was Elliot's train. He climbed in. The smell hit him first, wet metal, ozone, and decay. The seats were torn, windows fogged with condensation. But he wasn't alone. At the far end, a figure stood facing the wall. Still, breathing. Luis lifted his light. "Sir, you're trespassing down here." The figure turned. Elliot's MTA uniform clung to his gray skin. His eyes were white and milky. His mouth moved in short, jerking twitches, as if trying to form words that no longer belonged to him. The whisper filled the car, hundreds of overlapping voices murmuring from every direction. Some inside his own head. Luis dropped the flashlight and ran. By the time security arrived, the tunnel was gone. Bricked over, dry as if it had never existed. Word spread through the crews fast. They called that section the Whisper Line. No one wanted assignments there. Dispatchers reported phantom trains appearing on tracking screens, sometimes numbered 2414, sometimes blank. They'd move between stations where no train was scheduled, then vanish without a trace. Commuters began reporting strange things too, feeling watched while sitting alone in late-night cars, hearing soft breaths near their ears, or seeing their own reflection smile back a moment too late. In December, an independent journalist named Kevin Lynch decided to make a documentary about the missing conductor. He set up hidden cameras, boarded the last A train, and started recording live commentary for his channel. At first, it's typical. Shots of the graffiti, echoing tunnels, the click-clack of wheels. Then 20 minutes in, the footage changes. Kevin's whispering, "There's no one else here, but I swear I keep hearing breathing." The train slows to a crawl. The lights flicker, bathing the car in rhythmic flashes. He pans the camera down the aisle, empty seats. Then faintly the sound of his name. "Kevin." He jerks the camera. "Who said that?" Silence. Then again closer, almost inside the microphone. "Say your name." The lights go out. The screen fills with static. Somewhere in the static you can hear it again. Layered, dozens of voices repeating, "Kevin, Kevin, Kevin." The video ends there. The camera was found the next morning in an empty car parked in the yard. No trace of Kevin. His watch was later discovered between the seats of an old maintenance train, the same one labeled 2414. After that, the MTA closed several tunnels for renovation. Workers who entered came out pale, shaken, refusing to talk. One of them, under the influence of heavy sedatives, mumbled a sentence over and over. "He doesn't take the dead, he takes the names." When questioned, he said the whisperer only needs to hear your name once. Then he can follow it anywhere. To this day, commuters still report oddities along that stretch of line. Phones glitching, radios hissing out fragments of conversation, announcements whispering names not on any passenger list. Sometimes, if a train stops too long between Fulton and Canal, you might notice the car feels heavier, like someone new just stepped on. You'll look up, expecting another passenger, but it'll be just you and your reflection in the window, until your reflection turns its head before you do. So if you ever find yourself riding the subway alone after midnight, and you feel a chill creep down your spine and a whisper curls around your ear, don't answer. Don't even breathe. Because once the whisperer knows your name, he'll keep whispering it back to you, again and again, until the day you vanish too, between stations, and your own voice joins the echo in the tunnels below New York. Before we move on to the next story, give us your verdict on this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Harlem after midnight breathes differently. The daytime rhythm, kids shouting on sidewalks, buses growling, jazz leaking through cracked windows, fades into a hollow echo. The sound of the city doesn't disappear, it hides. It waits in alleys and behind glass like it's holding its breath. But there's one street near 145th, tucked between two half-demolished brownstones, that people say the city itself abandoned. They call it the Dead Stretch. Locals know not to walk through it after dark. Cabs refuse to turn down it. Street sweepers skip it, and even stray cats stop at the corner and stare before turning away. Yet for as long as anyone can remember, there's been a light burning there. One single flickering streetlight that never dies. And under that light once lived a man named Marcus Hall. Marcus wasn't like the rest of Harlem. While others escaped the city every chance they got, Marcus chased its forgotten corners. He was a freelance photographer, not for fashion, not for headlines, but for what he called truth in decay. He photographed things no one else cared about. Abandoned staircases swallowed by ivy, crumbling murals no one looked at anymore, shoes left on fire escapes. He said New York was full of ghosts, not spirits but memories trapped in brick. He believed every building had a heartbeat. When his girlfriend Alana left him, she said it was because Marcus listened more to walls than to people. Maybe she was right. By the time Marcus moved into the building on the Dead Stretch, most of the tenants were already gone. The city had condemned half of it. Pipes leaked rust, the boiler moaned through the night, and rats sounded like rain in the walls. But Marcus didn't mind. Rent was cheap and solitude made for better focus. Still, something about the place unsettled him. On the first night as he unpacked, he noticed the light outside his window. An old cast-iron street lamp, flickering in a strange pattern. 3 quick flashes, a pause, then one long burst. At first, he thought it was just faulty wiring, until it did it again the next night, and again the night after. Always at 2:37 a.m. Exactly. Curiosity became obsession. Marcus began timing the flickers, comparing them to old Morse code charts. The pattern spelled nothing, but it felt deliberate, like someone trying to speak without words. One night he decided to record it. He set up his camera on a tripod facing the window and hit record before heading to bed. In the morning he reviewed the footage. At 2:37 a.m. the light began flickering. But what caught his eye wasn't the light. It was the reflection in the window. In the glass behind the light stood a tall, thin silhouette, perfectly still, facing upward, facing him. He zoomed in. The figure had no clear features, no face, no edges, just a shape darker than the night around it. When he rewound the footage, the shadow wasn't there before the flicker. It appeared the moment the light began strobing, and vanished the second it went steady again. He told himself it was a glitch, maybe a double exposure or a passing pedestrian. But deep down, Marcus knew the truth. That light wasn't malfunctioning. It was signaling, and whoever or whatever stood beneath it was signaling back. The next few nights, Marcus stayed awake to watch it happen live. At 2:37 a.m., the light would flicker. Every time he'd see movement, not on the street but in his own apartment. Shadows bending the wrong direction. Shapes forming in the corner, just beyond focus. The hum of electricity became louder each night. Soon he could feel it, buzzing through his fingertips, vibrating in his teeth. Then came the voices. It started as static, but slowly words began forming hidden under the hum. He's still here. He never left the light. Don't let it go out. The whispers crawled through the wiring, out of outlets, through the flickering lamp and into his dreams. Marcus tried to sleep with the power off, but every time he unplugged something, a faint light would reappear. The LED on a dead device, the glow under the door, the reflection of a streetlight that shouldn't reach his window. He couldn't escape it. One night, the hum grew so intense that he grabbed his phone and stormed into the hall. Every apartment door was sealed shut, all except one. At the very end of the corridor, half hidden behind peeling wallpaper, was a door he'd never seen before. Apartment 4C. He stared at it for a long time. The door looked older than the others. Darker wood, brass knob, faint scorch marks near the hinges. From behind it came a sound like soft static and breathing. He knocked once. Silence. Then 3 knocks back. He froze. The air around the door felt warm, charged, like standing too close to a transformer. He slowly turned the knob. The door creaked open an inch. Cold air poured out, smelling of burned dust and rain. Inside, darkness. And deep within it, a faint flickering bulb, pulsing like a heartbeat. He whispered, "Hello?" A woman's voice answered from the dark. "You shouldn't be here. He follows the current." Marcus blinked. "Who's there?" The voice came again, softer this time, almost a sigh. He never turned off the light. Then the bulb exploded. The door slammed shut, nearly catching his hand. Marcus stumbled back, breathing hard, camera trembling in his grip. He ran downstairs and banged on the super's door. The old man opened it, eyes wide. "What are you doing up here at this hour?" "There's someone in 4C, Marcus gasped. "She's saying..." The super's face went pale. "Son," he whispered, "there is no 4C. That apartment burned down 40 years ago. The man who lived there, he was an electrician. He died in the fire trying to shut off a shorted line. They never found him." Marcus stared. "Then who's..." Before he could finish, the hallway lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then everything went dark. That night, Marcus didn't sleep. He sat by the window with his camera rolling, waiting for the streetlight to flicker again. When 2:37 came, the light outside burned brighter than ever. Steady, blinding. He raised his camera. The lens fogged over. He wiped it. Looked again. The figure was standing inside the building now, right across the street, reflected in his own window. He turned around. Nothing there. Then in the reflection it moved closer, stepping out of the glass like a shadow peeling itself free. His lights went out, and in the absolute dark, something began crawling through the walls. Not footsteps, but the slow ripple of something moving through wires, snapping and crackling as it passed. Marcus ran to the breaker and shut it off. The buzzing stopped. For a moment he thought it was over. Then his phone lit up on the counter, even though it was dead. The screen glowed white and text began typing by itself. "Do not turn off the light." He dropped the phone. It slid across the table as if pushed by invisible hands and crashed to the floor. Every bulb in the apartment burst at once. The camera fell from the tripod, still recording. In its final seconds, the footage showed the room flooded with blinding white light. And then, silence. The next morning, neighbors complained of a burning smell. When police arrived, Marcus's door was locked from the inside. They forced it open. The air inside shimmered faintly, charged like static before a storm. The apartment was empty. No body, no camera, only a melted phone on the table, screen cracked but still glowing faintly. The text on it read, "He never left the light." A week later, city workers came to replace the old street lamp. When they opened the maintenance box, they found a set of charred fingerprints pressed into the wiring, as if someone had grabbed the cables bare-handed. The new light worked for exactly 3 nights before the flicker returned. 3 short, 1 long, 2:37 a.m. Always the same. You've just crossed the boundary between reality and the unknown. If you felt the fear tonight, make sure to subscribe before you leave, because on this channel every story is just the beginning. New nightmares arrive every few nights, each one darker than the last. Until then, keep your lights low, your doors locked, and your mind open. You are now part of the FearBound family.